You're watching Eswatini TV News at 10. I'm Natsile Sitole alongside Stilo Gunene. First, here's a look at our headlining stories tonight. Deputy Prime Minister Senator Thulsile Dladla says Autism Awareness Day is a day to educate about the condition without discriminating against those living with it. Minister for Tourism Honorable Janice Melane has encouraged the Pikes Peak Town Council, together with its stakeholders, to practice responsible tourism while ensuring that it benefits the residents of the area. Football and cultural teams to compete in this year's Ingwenyama Cup finals have received jerseys and outfits to be used during the finals. And now the news in detail. The Deputy Prime Minister Senator Thulsile Dladla says Autism Awareness Day is a day to educate about the condition without discriminating against those living with it. The Deputy Prime Minister says teachers should be trained on how to handle children with autism in schools. The Deputy Prime Minister was speaking during the commemoration of World Autism Awareness Day under the theme celebrating differences, advancing neurodiversity and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The World Autism Awareness Day is celebrated every year on the 2nd of April. Eswatini joined the world in commemorating this day at the Deputy Prime Minister's office, where organizations supporting people with disabilities and those focusing on autism gathered. Vanele Ngonyana, an occupational therapist, highlighted the challenges faced by individuals with autism and their families.
Nangigibela nje ngisuke Big Bend. Ngitembabane. Nemfana lese bamchazile ukuthi kungendeka ukuthi ngakufika kaManzini kushintshe yonke into.
She says many children with autism struggle with social interactions and sensory processing, which makes everyday tasks more difficult for them. Ngonyana raised concerns about the shortage of speech therapies and behavioral therapists in the country. She says without early diagnosis and intervention, children with autism often fail to receive the support they need to develop life skills. Autism Eswatini chairperson Pastor Senzo Hlatshwayo says autism issues are not discussed enough in public spaces, leaving many people unaware.
In the workplace, wena kunene ngicabanga ukuthi sesikhathi lapho khona sithi ikhulumisa naletinto. Ikakhulu ngoba ukhansela emsebenzini kunalomdali lona lomvana lona lesimo.
Hlatshwayo says autism is not given sufficient attention in national discourse and public spaces. He says that many people in Eswatini remain unaware of what autism is, how it affects individuals, and the support systems needed to ensure that those living with autism can thrive. FOSWA President Bongani Makama criticized the lack of public education campaigns and resources dedicated to people with epilepsy and disabilities.
Masibuka kuhlukubeteka ikakhulu kwabo bantu labane autism.
Makama says it is unfortunate that many people with disabilities live below the poverty line. He calls for inclusive policies that will ensure that autism is mainstreamed into national programs on disability, education, and health. In her remarks, the Deputy Prime Minister Senator Thulsile Dladla provides some of the interventions to be implemented by government towards the welfare of autistic persons.
Together, let us advocate for policies that promote equitable access to services. Let us ensure inclusive education systems that nurture the potential of every learner. Let us build workplaces that harness the creativity and innovation of neurodiverse individuals. Let us foster supportive communities where stigma is replaced by understanding.
Autism Eswatini reveals that in a study conducted in the Lubombo region, 1 in every 6 people is found to have autism. The organization says there are plans to establish a dedicated autism center. Reporting, I'm Natsile Sitole, Utemba Shabangu, Mbabane. The Minister for Tourism, Honorable Janice Melane, has encouraged the Pikes Peak Town Council, together with its stakeholders, to practice responsible tourism while ensuring that it benefits the residents of the area. Melane said this while making an address at the second Responsible Tourism Conference organized by Pikes Peak Hotel and the Town Council.
The Minister for Tourism, Honorable Janice Melane, has encouraged the Mswati to consider using tourism to their benefit in order to help them develop economically.
Bantu leba kuleo community la kutakhona tivakashi
She continued to mention that residents residing closer to tourist attraction sites should implement ways to keep tourists in their area for longer, which will then increase the money they spend. The Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Rickenbeck, highlighted that as government, they are willing to work hand in hand with private companies to improve the tourism industry in the country as it contributes a good percentage towards the country's GDP.
Integrating all of this with responsible tourism, I think, is really a massive benefit. At the moment, one is just going at it in the traditional style as government, but I do believe if one can include responsible tourism in this space and in everything that we do here, we would love to, as government, walk hand in hand with yourselves in this, making sure that what we do is sustainable and trying to get it right.
Professor Harold Goodwin, the guest speaker in this conference, highlighted on that a hotel establishment benefits the community in vast ways, including the upscaling of small businesses.
You know, a big hotel coming into a place has every opportunity to create a whole cluster of economic activity around it, and that's the point.
Glenn Orari, the hotel CEO, says the partnership they have made with the town has played a major role in upscaling tourism in the area.
Birth of the idea of having a MOU first with the town council because of their enthusiasm, and then the idea of extending that to a development, big development initiative stakeholder group, so that we would potentially meet on a half-yearly basis, but identify problems that are of mutual concern, or meet on a more regular basis or have ad hoc meetings when something arises.
The Ministry of Tourism has set a target to contribute 10% towards the country's GDP in the current financial year, and to reach that, more tourist attraction sites are to be developed. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I am Thabiso Mapanga, Pixpeak Hotel.
In a bid to ensure that every Eswatini citizen has access to legal representation, the Legal Aid Act is said to provide support to vulnerable eMaSwati in obtaining legal assistance. Legal advisor in the Ministry of Justice, John Mavuso, says that the Act will establish a fund managed by the Ministry of Finance, as some eMaSwati will be required to contribute in order to receive assistance. Mavuso was speaking during a workshop for the Ministry of Justice Portfolio Committee in the House of Senate.
The Constitution of Eswatini clearly stipulates that every Liswati has the right to access legal representation. For this reason, the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs has introduced the Legal Aid Initiative, which ensures that even the poorest of eMaSwati can receive legal assistance. The Portfolio Committee in the House of Senate of the Minister of Justice has been briefed on the Legal Aid Bill. During the presentation, John Mavuso, the ministry's legal advisor, explained that the initiative is designed to help eMaSwati who require legal aid but cannot afford it. Mavuso says that proper structures will be put in place to ensure that only those who genuinely need assistance will benefit. Mavuso says that references such as chiefdoms will be required to verify eligibility. Mavuso also explained that some individuals who are not considered vulnerable may be required to make contributions. He also assured that measures will be taken to prevent issues related to money laundering. Senators raised questions about whether criminal cases will also be covered under the legal aid program. In response, the Director of Legal Aid Eswatini, Lungile Makakula, clarified that the presumption of innocence applies and that the legal aid program was specifically created to assist vulnerable eMaSwati who require legal representation.
Lama matters vele onke atawudilishwa nawo but mhlawumbe kungaba khona mhlambe ma exceptions lathinte. Atawudilishwa ngale presumption phela ye innocence nje.
Makakula further says that Eswatini is a signatory to various international laws and the Sustainable Development Goals, which mandate that citizens should have access to legal aid. For Eswatini TV News, Ndomlangeni, Parliament.
Young people are urged to take it upon themselves to gain knowledge about financial support and opportunities set aside for them to start their businesses. This comes as the Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund initiates an outreach program to constituencies where youth are taught about the requirements for applying to the fund. The Youth Enterprise Revolving Fund is in the process of assisting young people to draft compelling proposals for their businesses. On Tuesday, the fund conducted a training for youth under the Lutse constituency. The constituency head, Sabelo Mazia, says that even though 20 young people have been supported by the fund in this constituency, this number is still too small considering the high unemployment rate among the youth in the country.
Sikubone kuhle ukuthi nabasebalutse abathi lokuthi le timali accessa kanjani bangathathi nje ukuthi hayi lawa ngemathuba lavelela insha lele emadolobheni.
Mazia highlights that many youth struggle to access business funding due to lack of information, a fear of loans, and challenges in meeting application requirements. He welcomes the training initiative, saying it is a step in the right direction to empower young people with knowledge on how to tap into the opportunities available through the fund. Young people express the challenges they face in trying to obtain business funding.
And this is a platform.
Some express concern about the perceived complexity of the application process, stating that the requirements were often challenging to meet, especially for those without business experience or assets. Others pointed out that even after submitting applications, there were delays in fund disbursement, making it difficult to plan effectively. Some of the young people say the paperwork required is costly and are calling on the fund to engage local business mentors to guide them in managing and growing their enterprises once they receive funding. The YERF Communications Officer Sihlang Chele says the fund supports almost all types of businesses except money lending, forex trading, and illegal substances.
We don't just reject applications, but we defer applications. The reasons normally becomes negative cash flow projections, lack of market demand, saturated markets. And to try to enhance the challenges, we collaborate with some of our partners such as CFI, Desire to help conduct trainings on how to create good business plans. We also do recommend services of SEDCO to help guide young people on how to create viable business plans.
JLA says the support received by the youth from the fund does not require collateral, and the repayment period can range from 1 to 3 years. Reporting, I'm Natsule Sitole with Themba Shabangu, Lutse. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Kangezwe Mabuza, says the ministry is working on plans to establish a project management unit to be fully responsible for the national parks in the country. The Principal Secretary revealed this when appearing before the Public Accounts Committee to answer on why the ministry did not utilize part of the 15 million emalangeni allocated for the rehabilitation of national parks.
Among other issues which the Minister of Tourism and Environmental Affairs was called upon to give answers to include funds that were released for some work to be carried out in the 4 national parks of the country, wherein the ministry only utilized 10 million emalangeni in the rehabilitation of the parks facilities and fencing. The Auditor General Timothy Matebula expressed concerns of his office about this.
What contract do we have with the service provider? Is there any authority to extend the contract? And the invoices are there. There's a patelago, that's a good contractor. My observation when done low service provider.
He says his office does not understand the role of the service provider and the expected output of the project, including invoices. He says the office would also like to go and inspect the sites. He says it is important for the ministry not to commit funds if there are no released documents. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism and Environmental Affairs, Kangezwe Mabuza, says the 5 million emalangeni was put aside for the establishment of the project management unit, and consultations with relevant ministries on this are ongoing. The Principal Secretary went on to explain that other funds which were donated for the purchase of equipment have still not been released by the Ministry of Economic Planning.
Planning at assignment ngidawubuya kini sesinasisagadza impendulo kube sekuvela lokunye lokuphuthumako.
She says the ministry was being sent back and forth by the Ministry of Economic Planning when requesting the funds to purchase the equipment, and the funds were eventually removed from the budget. She pleads that the ministry really needs the equipment. The Public Accounts Committee will proceed to other government ministries where the Auditor General found some audit queries. Reporting, Mbongo Dube, Smova Shongwe, and Bongan Masugu Lobamba.
Guyendeka Savings and Credit Cooperative, which is supported by the Taiwan International Cooperation and Development Fund, has helped women at grassroots level in rural communities to make savings of over 600,000 in Malangin. The cooperative's advisor at the Taiwan Technical Mission, Grace Lulu, said this when giving an update on the cooperative, which started a year ago, aimed at helping small and medium enterprises.
We currently have 776 members, yes, and the people have saved over 400,000. And in fact, that is shares, 400,000 in shares, because each member has to buy 5 shares, which is amounts to 1,000. So all of them, some of them have bought all the 5 shares, so they have 400,000 in terms of shares. And in terms of savings, they have over 660,000.
She has also shared the importance of joining cooperatives.
You are the owners of the entity as members. You have equal shares in the cooperative, meaning that you also have an equal say. You can be voted into the board, and you can also place your decisions at the AGM, your opinions at the AGM, and decisions are taken, and the entity is run according to what the members want.
According to the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade, cooperatives are the driving force for economic growth and a significant contributor to job creation and poverty alleviation. There are around 1,200 cooperatives in the country with assets of about 3 billion emalangeni. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa Mbabane.
Following the electricity hike, which came into effect on the 1st of April, where domestic users are now getting 43 units for 100 Malangini, most businesses continue to look for alternative sources of energy to power their businesses, and this includes embedded generators like solar PV. The Eswatini Electricity Company's Marketing and Corporate Communications Manager, Kaya Mavuso, has called upon businesses that have these generators connected to the company's grid to come and register or face being disconnected from the EEC network.
It's a regulatory requirement that is connected to the Electricity Act of 2007. Anything that is connected into the EEC grid has to be registered. Apart from the regulatory requirement, it is also looking at quality issues. There are standards on the electricity grid that need to be followed. So if you put anything onto the EEC grid, we need to be informed so that we advise you on the quality and standard requirements. The third and most important reason why we are requesting for small-scale embedded generators to register is because of safety concerns.
He has also highlighted the number of companies that have already registered.
We have received about 100 installations countrywide for small-scale embedded generators. And the comforting part of that is that we have a capacity of 25 megawatts hours from that registration. If you see that our Ezulwini hydropower station has a capacity of 20 megawatts, you can see the magnitude of the potential for small-scale embedded generators in the country. You mentioned that there are increasing costs of electricity imports. We all know that we import most of our electricity and generate a portion of about 30% of it. With the small-scale embedded generators, we are looking at a future where customers can put their supply onto the EEC grid. In that way, it will mean that there is a possibility that we can have 25 megawatts within an hour. That will help us reduce the import costs from our neighboring countries.
Mavuso says registering the embedded generators will allow for easy monitoring so that businesses are not in danger of being affected by faults because of the interchangeable use of embedded generators and grid electricity. He has further said this is also to protect EEC workers by ensuring safety of their workers as they do maintenance. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Mbabane.
And now let's have a look at our financial indicators. And moving on to sports, football and cultural teams to compete in this year's Ingonyama Cup finals have received jerseys and outfits to be used during the finals. The kit handover was held at Nkanini, Lubamba.
With the 2025 Ingonyama Cup finals edging closer, football teams and cultural teams to compete in the finals have received their kits ahead of the finals on Sunday.
It's Ingonyama asifisele live layo.
Chairman of Ingonyama Cup, His Royal Highness Prince Tlangaweza, delivered a message from His Majesty King Mswati III to the teams, wishing them all the best ahead of the finals, mentioning that all those who have reached the finals have done very well.
Isho njalo bengunene Mswazi omnyama kwaluthulo odunga endaba embelebeleni Mswazi bethe isidlabe swaka umgobo onompondo awungena esigujini ungena amagabeni esinyathi wena waphakathi bayethe.
Both Ncebetero MVA Fund and Premier League of Eswatini have also applauded His Majesty for his kind gesture to the finalists. Other teams to receive kits included social games to play on the day. The finals will be between Royal Leopard against Moroni Pirates, while under ladies, Young Buffaloes will play against Singizini Hospice, with both games to be played at Sumtlo National Stadium. For Eswatini TV Sports, from Bisumsonera, Lubamba.
And that's all for now. Before I go, here's a reminder of our headlining stories. Deputy Prime Minister Senator Thuthile Dladla says Autism Awareness Day is a day to educate about the condition without discriminating against those living with it. Minister for Tourism, Honorable Janice Milane, has encouraged the Pikespeak Town Council, together with its stakeholders, to practice responsible tourism while ensuring that it benefits the residents of the area. Football and cultural teams to compete in this year's Ingonyama Cup finals have received jerseys and outfits to be used during the finals. And with that, it's a wrap. I'll leave you with the weather update for myself and the crew. Thank you for your company. Good night.
Shop millions in savings with Spar Rewards until 21 April. Get 3 kg Sunlight hand washing powder for $79.99 and save 20